Hello, Sess here. Today's interview is with Likesomerice. We talk about hopes, dreams, goals, childhood memories, and other great interesting stuff. Hopefully you stick around. What do we call you?
I go online by Likesomerice. It's not really a secret what my name is, but I'll let you guys figure that out if you want. But yeah, Likesomerice is what I go by. Rice is what a lot of people call me. Um, yeah, so I mean, if you want to just refer to me as Rice, that's totally fine.
Right, Rice. How have you been?
I've been good. I had a job interview today that went really well, and yeah, I'm working on trying to get a job at the moment. I used to do insurance, and I ended up having to take a break for some health reasons, and yeah, so now I'm just getting back into the swing of things.
Oh, nice. That's good to hear.
Yeah,
How old are you?
I am 27. So when I started YouTube, I think I was 25, I think. I think I was about 25 when I started. And so, yeah, I've been doing this, I guess, 2 years now.
All right. What made you start creating?
Yeah, it's something that I've always wanted to do. I know when I had moved out of my family's house and I moved into my apartment with my wife, I'd always had an idea that I really wanted to start doing some kind of YouTube, whether that be a podcast or playing games or streaming or what have you. So I kind of just waited until I had a PC set up that I felt was good enough that I could actually do what I wanted to do. And in September of not last year, but the year before, I managed to finally get one. And so I finally decided to shake off the cobwebs and try my hand at YouTube. And yeah, surprisingly, it's been a lot more successful than I expected. I was very, very grateful for the community. It's been really, really amazing.
What do you hope to achieve as a creator?
Honestly, I used to have some kind of lofty goals. I would say my first lofty goal was really just to hit 1,000 subs. Um, I've gotten a lot more watch time than I really expected. I had a few videos and a few niches that kind of started like really big like view counts on some of my videos, and so my goals kind of got bigger and bigger, and eventually I kind of realized like I do, even though my views are starting to get bigger, I have to still kind of keep some semblance of groundness. So my goal at this point, honestly, is to just kind of have fun with it and just kind of keep doing it as a hobby. Hopefully, the views and subs will come as it happens. But yeah, everything up to this point has just been, first thing I want to do is hit 1,000 subs. I'd love to have a video break over 100K at some point. The closest video I have to that right now is 76,000 views.
Wow.
So yeah, I would love to. I would love to just, I would love to have that experience of hitting a high number for views.
That would be an amazing thing to feel.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. The first time you get a video that goes over, gosh, even the first like video that you have that goes over 1,000, you're like, I can't believe that this like 1,000 people just watched this. But then the first time you get one that goes over 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, and then once you hit in the 20,000s, you're like, "Ah, I don't even understand what's happening. Like, I can't believe people are watching this." So yeah, it's a crazy experience.
That's awesome. What did you want to be when you were a kid?
Gosh, I wanted to be a lot of things. I would say like one of the first things I remember wanting to be was an astronaut. Which of course, that's like for some reason that's like a kid's go-to, which I think is hilarious. But like I actually had like the NASA space shuttle like ship, and I had the astronaut like action figures as well, but not like just like generic action figures. Like I had actual spacemen,
Oh, wow.
like Neil Armstrong and and them. So I guess I wanted to be that. But as the years went on, honestly, like I guess I really wanted to be like a movie director. Like even now to this day, that's still something that I've thought of a lot. I would love to make a movie. It's kind of on my like bucket list of like if I could achieve one thing in my life, that would probably be the thing. I'd want to make a movie.
That's awesome. What kind of foods do you like?
I'm really easy with food. It really doesn't matter. I mean, I'm not super skinny or anything, but I'm really just not picky. My favorites would be pizza, or Mexican food. I love Mexican food. I have a really strong love for that culture, and I speak a little bit of Spanish, so I just kind of have that built-in love for Spanish. But yeah, pizza and Mexican food, kind of the way to my heart for food.
What kind of games do you like?
Oh, that's a that's a big question. I mean, obviously, as you can probably tell, I like Halo and Doom. But I really, really like first-person shooters, RPGs, basically anything that has like a lot of substance or anything that feels like really has a really good gameplay loop. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, I probably would have told you anything that plays like The Last of Us. Which, as much as I love The Last of Us for what it is, I've really started straying away from games that are more story based because there's just so many of them now. And so, yeah, I really like games like Halo, Doom, the Call of Duty franchise. Surprisingly, I've been really into in the last few years, which is really funny because I always dogged on it and hated it, and now I actually play it a lot. My favorite game of all time, though, is Cyberpunk 2077. So
Nice.
without a doubt, like just anything that kind of has that first person, shooter vibe, I like. I like a good third person shooter or action adventure game too, but I guess I thrive in first person shooters.
Awesome. What was the first game you remember loving?
It's probably gonna be a mix of like three, two or three. Because the first game I remember playing was either Super Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, or Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. And I love each of those probably equally, I would say. It's really hard to put one above another. If you would have asked me growing up, I probably would have told you Ocarina, just because that was everybody's pick. But I mean, for me, like my money these days, I'd rather play Tony Hawk any other day than the other two. So yeah, I guess it's really got to be one of those three. Yeah, I would say out of that, probably Tony Hawk, just for the amount of time that I put into that game.
What kind of shows do you like or movies?
Yeah, movies. I'm a huge movie guy. My first, let's see, my first like favorite director was Tim Burton, and so Tim Burton kind of started like my love of weird, quirky, dark horror movies and things like that. I'm a massive horror fan, as you could probably tell. I got a Terrifier poster, so I absolutely adore horror movies. Those are definitely my favorite genre. And then as far as TV goes, I'm actually not a big TV guy. My favorite shows of all time are Walking Dead and Game of Thrones, which is probably not a super like shock considering that those are like everybody's favorites. But I mean it when I say like those are actually like for sure my favorites because they're some of the only shows that I've actually finished. Um, Also, Midnight Mass. Shout out to Midnight Mass for being my like the best piece of media I've seen in general. But yeah, movies wise, I love horror. I like a lot of B movies too. Like,
Mm.
I think B movies are a lot of fun when you can watch something that's awful and know why it's awful. It helps you understand what makes the good movies that much better.
What's your favorite childhood movie?
Man, I would have to say, oh boy, that's tough. I watched Neverending Story a lot. The Neverending Story was one that I watched a lot. I also watched Empire Strikes Back a lot. Clearly, I guess Star Wars left the mark.
Mhm.
uh, but I watched Empire Strikes Back a lot. I would say that like those are a couple of them. Return of the King. It's weird to call that a childhood movie, but like I was 7 years old when Return of the King came out, and I've watched it probably at least 20 times, like in a year. Like I watched it a lot. I would actually use it so because I wasn't that great with math growing up, I would kind of use Return of the King as like a timer. So like if I had a big exciting event and my mom told me it was like 3 hours, I would put on Return of the King as a timer because I was like, oh, that movie's like 3 hours, so I know how long something will be based off of where I'm at in Return of the King. Uh, so I would say that those were like the three that I probably frequented a lot.
What's your favorite childhood memory?
Man, that's tough. Got a lot of good childhood memories. I took care of my grandma a lot growing up, and so a lot of the times I would try to find a way to get my like video game systems like closer to her. So I lived with my grandparents, and I would take care of her because she had diabetes, like lymphedema. She had like kidney failure and a few other things, and so I would oftentimes try to get whatever system I was playing as close to her as I could so that I could be in the same room with her and then like watch her while I also play. And so whether that be like moving my PS3 or my Xbox 360 to like the Cars TV in the room she's in, or bringing like I had like a little TV that had a VHS player built into it, and I played I think all of Batman Arkham City and BioShock on that TV, and that TV must have had a resolution of like 119 pixels. Like there's no way that TV had a good resolution at all,
Mm.
but it was a great way of just being able to be like close to her and being able to enjoy my hobby while also just yeah spending time with her because like we would watch a lot of movies and TV, so I would like go from playing to going to watch what she was watching and then going back and forth. So it was nice.
Sounds really nice. Uh, do you have a role model or hero?
Yeah, you know, so I grew up like really religious, so like I used to kind of put a lot of stock in I guess like people in the church and stuff like that. And these days, I guess the person that I'm probably most look up to is my grandpa. Um he's just always been such a really kind person and such a genuine person. And so he's been a really big influence on me and the things I do, and just being able to see like the good that he does in spite of whether or not he should do good or should be more cynical about some things. It's just really impressive to see how much he's yeah to see how much he cares about other people. So I would probably say my grandpa. Growing up, it was probably my grandma, and then as you grow up and you kind of see faults in your heroes. um yeah, I don't know, I would say grandpa.
That's a good answer. What kind of jobs have you had? The best and the worst?
Yeah, so the worst job I've ever had, we'll start with the worst because I think the worst is a little bit more fun. I worked at so I live in Iowa, and here in Iowa we have a chain called Hy-Vee. And Hy-Vee has like they have like a little kitchen department, and I worked in an Italian department, and it was probably the worst job I've ever worked just because of how unprofessional everything there was. Um, like it was just really awful. Like I got locked in the freezer at one point.
Mm.
I was told to like unpack something from a truck, and so I go to the freezer, and I'm unpacking everything in this freezer. 30 minutes goes by, and I'm like, man, I was like, it's getting kind of cold. I think I'm gonna step out for a minute, and then I go to the door, and I realize there's no handle on the door. And nobody told me that there was no like my boss was just like, oh, whatever, get in there. And he didn't hand me a code or anything, and I guess like he was supposed to give me a code as well. I was like 16 too, so like The worst jobs are probably going to be when you're young, hopefully, but for me it was definitely Hy-Vee. Hy-Vee was the worst. Everybody was just so weird and crazy, and like the expectations for getting paid minimum wage, which minimum wage, 7.25 for when I worked there, it was just insane. So yeah, I wouldn't go back there ever. I even told my wife, like, you couldn't. I don't think there's enough money in this world you could pay me to go back and work at Hy-Vee. One of the best jobs I ever had was actually the last job I had. I worked at AAA as an insurance agent, and I've been licensed for 4 years as an insurance agent. So I used to sell property and casualty for auto and home. And AAA was great. I met some lifelong friends there, and the community that like we have built up here in Iowa with this AAA office is just really great. And we even like managed to like when we got somebody who was actually kind of a crappy worker. They were like a life agent, so they didn't actually work with me directly, but we were actually like me and my friends on Discord ended up kind of doing a little bit of trolling with him because he was also trying to do YouTube, and it was kind of funny because a lot of the stuff he was making was very pretentious, shall we say? He's a big crypto bro. But yeah, we had fun with them, and just AAA was just one of those environments where every day you felt good about going in because you knew that the people there had your back, and that's probably like I don't know, that's probably got to be like one of the best feelings ever is just knowing that you got somebody watching over you.
Do you do any reading?
Yeah, I do. I don't read as much as I'd like to. I was a huge reader growing up. I would say that reading growing up, I was reading, I think, 3 or 4 levels ahead of what I was supposed to be. When I was 5 years old, my favorite book was Dracula. So
Oh, wow.
horror was really instilled in me at a very young age. I'm actually really surprised too. I don't know if we'll talk about this later, but knowing my family's very strict morals, I'm very surprised that they let me read Dracula because it's very. If you've ever read the book, it's not a light-hearted story. It's very dark. It's very gruesome. There's a lot of very like suggestive things in it, but I picked up all of it really really well. I think after that I read Moby Dick, and like I just continued to read a bunch of old classics. Um, these days I primarily read a lot of comics and graphic novels. There was a lot that I missed out on growing up because I wasn't allowed to read a ton of them, and so these days I kind of lately I've been reading a lot of Spawn, a lot of like early Spawn, and that's been really good. And then reading Walking Dead, and I've been reading Berserk as well. So
Nice.
yeah, a
Those,
lot of different stuff.
those are some really good ones.
Berserk is probably the most like brutal depiction of like suffering I've ever seen in any media, and so like yeah, it's there's some excellent storytelling in all three of those. Like
Hmm.
they're excellent. Yeah, comics and graphic novels are really like where my heart lies a lot of the time. But I love a good Stephen King book from time to time too.
What are your current goals or plans?
Yeah, I used to have a lot of lofty goals. Um, I used to really, really want to, have a college degree and get married, and then have like, I guess my assumption was to just be like a really successful business person. Whatever the dream they sell you in high school is basically. These days, I'm pretty comfortable just finding a job that suits me and then just kind of settling into it. Something that pays well, obviously, but something that just feels natural, that feels like a good fit, and then something that allows me to have a good work from home or a good work and home balance so that I can continue doing what I love, and then also just so that I can, yeah, so that I can continue doing what I love, I guess, to still do my hobbies, but then be able to, yeah, to still, make money. live.
Mhm. Do you have any tattoos?
I do. So you've probably already seen the
Yeah.
one. I've got a Star Wars Jedi tattoo. I just loved the look of it, and I was really excited about it. So that was the first one. And then the second one we've got, hopefully that one can be seen okay, but that one is a sun, moon, and stars. I originally was going to get a cyberpunk tattoo, but I didn't end up having enough money for what I wanted to get on the bicep, and I had $100 deposit down. And instead of losing the $100 deposit, I asked if it would be okay if I could switch things up, and yeah, they let me get something smaller. So that's how I ended up with this guy.
Oh, okay. If you were to get another tattoo, what would you choose?
Man, I've got a lot of plans for tattoos that I would love to get. My wife would probably cringe at hearing even a few of the thoughts, but just because at first she was really against the idea of me getting tattoos, and then eventually, she kind of realized like, hey, it's not that big of a deal. It's something that you want to do. It's your body, your choice, basically. But yeah, I would love to get a Walking Dead tattoo. Um, Me and my mom started that show in April when my grandmother died, and I didn't think my mom would even like the show, and we ended up watching 9 seasons together.
Oh,
And so I would love to get a Walking Dead tattoo or some kind of zombie tattoo. Um, that, or I would love to get maybe like a Batman tattoo or something else as well. Yeah.
what are some of the tough parts of being a creator?
Um, I think the toughest thing is having the strength to say yes and no to your own ideas. To say like, yes, I should make this, or no, I shouldn't make this. Being able to have the strength to sit down and do it sometimes. As somebody who suffers with like depression and anxiety, it can be really tough sometimes to really sit down and dedicate yourself to to getting something done. But that feeling when you put something out in the world that you're really proud of, that's kind of the reward at the end of the rainbow. That thing that reminds you that no, it was worth sitting down and putting the time in. The other thing I think is um, just being able to roll with the punches. Sometimes it's really hard to tell what is going to cause a stir with people. With the internet, these days it's really hard to tell sometimes what's going to cause people to react negatively. And so being able to have a thick skin is really important.
Mhm. Right. Can you tell us a bit about your experiences with depression and anxiety?
Yeah. So if you would have asked me probably a few years ago, I probably wouldn't have even talked about it. But yeah, so I've been depressed well, I mean, we all have bouts of depression, but mine is clinical. So I have bouts of major depressive disorder. And then I also have I forget what the anxiety, I think it's general anxiety disorder. Um, and it kind of caused, that's actually why I had to stop working for a little bit, because it was causing me to yeah, just to kind of really focus on the existential parts of life, and to really have issues trying to navigate I guess life in general. And so yeah, it's certainly something I've suffered with and dealt with. Yeah, I think it was kind of new for my family to kind of like console me. My wife has been an absolute, like, she's been fantastic. She's been a rock star in helping like through that. But yeah, depression and anxiety have ruled my life since the age of 10. And I only recently got started getting treatment for it maybe 5 years ago. I think around the time that I met my wife. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster. It's been a hell of a ride, but I would say at this point in my life, this is probably one of the first times I really feel like I have a hold on it, depression and anxiety, and it's not easy. And I'm never gonna like tell anybody that it's easy, but it is manageable. It's certainly manageable.
What are some things you do to relax?
Yeah. Well, playing games a lot of the time. Um, I didn't used to want to call that as like a relaxation or a like a pastime for me. Like, oh well, I don't want to just make it as like a thing that I go and do to relax. But honestly, it's been really therapeutic. You know, to call somebody up on Discord and say, hey, do you want to run some things in Call of Duty? Or to just start something up on not Call of Duty, but just start something up on the computer and start playing. Put on a podcast or something and start listening to something that I wanted to catch up on during the day. It's really, really comforting sometimes to just zone out for a little bit, you know, have a drink of something you like, listen to a podcast, and just play, read, or watch something. It's really therapeutic. And sometimes, honestly, it's just as simple as like going for a ride. I love, love, love going for rides or walks or whatever. So I will do that a lot of the time to, yeah, just to kind of relax.
What do you think about meditation?
I think meditation is a really good tool, just to kind of get your head right. I guess I don't really do it like in the way that in the way that a lot of people do it. Like, you know, I guess for me, I always think of meditation as like yoga or like it, you know, something a little bit more traditional. But for meditation, yeah, I really, really just like kind of cutting myself off sometimes. Like sometimes, like I won't respond to people's texts or whatever. I'll just put my phone on silent and I'll just kind of allow myself to be present in the moment with whoever I'm with, and just kind of cut myself off from whatever might be a distraction, and then just kind of allow myself to be in the moment. And it's a really therapeutic thing, honestly. Sometimes like that is what helps with anxiety and depression.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
What does a dream vacation look like?
Oh man. Well, if cards play out right, Dream Vacation might be happening next year. Actually, uh, I'm supposed to be going to Disney. Is it Disneyland World, the one in Florida? Is that World?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I've never been, so it'll be the first time. But I'm supposed to be going with my in-laws and my wife to Disney in Florida, whatever one that is, in August of this next year. It's something that I've wanted to go for a long time. I'm not like a massive Disney head or anything, but I really like Star Wars and I really like Avatar. And I have like an affinity for the Haunted Mansion too. So yeah, I'm just really excited to go for the first time. I don't think I've ever been further than Nashville. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been further than Nashville, and I've never rode on a plane. So I'm excited to really go and just do something new, honestly.
Awesome. It sounds like a great time.
I'm excited. I'm just ready to like. My wife keeps talking up this window seat and on the plane, and I'm trying to understand what the big deal is. I'm assuming it's because you get to look at the clouds, which like I'm all about. You know, I like looking at the sky anyway, so why not?
What is something you're passionate about?
And I'm really passionate about film. Um, I spent a lot of time thinking about like you know, proto sequels for things that I would want to make, or things that I would want to make like in a creative sense. Like sometimes I think people kind of don't understand that like when I say like I love film, like film is really one of those things where if somebody could tell me tomorrow that they'd give me a budget, they'd give me everything I need to make a film, and you know, time, and I would go tomorrow. I would stop everything I'm doing and go make a film. It's just one of those things that I've always wanted to do. I started to make a film, I want to say a couple of years ago. I bought like a few things for equipment, because honestly these days you can make something like, you know, these lower budget indie films. I've realized that you can make stuff on an iPhone, assuming that you have the right software and such. And yeah, I would love. I'm really passionate about filmmaking and things, and just how things are shot. Composition of photography and everything. It's one of those things I've always been really passionate about, and the more I watch certain movies or film or whatever, I just kind of my passion for it grows. Even if it's a really crappy movie, it's still kind of gross. So,
Hmm. Hmm. How do you deal with stress in your life?
oh, one day at a time or 1 minute at a time, I guess, honestly. Uh, there are so many stresses just all the time. Whether it be in laws or my family or, health, sickness, just general anxieties, financial troubles. A lot of it, the biggest thing that helps, especially if it's with another person, like if it's stress with another person, is communication. Like that has probably been the best thing I've taken away from the last 5 years of my life is just communicating with your partner and like letting them know what you need and being able to be transparent and having that person reciprocate that to you is it's the best. So, yeah, stress is not easy, but knowing your limits is a really important thing. Being able to take yourself out of a place and time and being able to just take a step back and say, you know what, I can't, and that's okay, and leave the situation you're in. And if you can't leave the situation you're in, breathe and just, wait till you can and go to another one. And yeah, that's the best thing I've been able to do personally.
Hmm. What is something you do to treat yourself?
Yeah, I assume when you say treat, I assume you mean like just like how I handle like stress and anxiety and things like that.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So a lot of the times, I mean, obviously, I take medicine and everything for it.
Oh.
One thing that I tried recently that I'd never done this, and to be honest, it's not that I really had any ill will towards it, but I did one of those numbers that you call, those hotlines where you just talk to somebody, and it wasn't for like suicide or anything, but it was just to kind of talk, just to kind of, get the stresses and things off your mind. And I was really surprised how therapeutic that was. I actually might be implementing that like more into how I handle my stress. But a lot of the times I will try to surround myself with things that just make me happy or things that I know are going to be good for me. I don't like to use. One thing I've tried to make sure to not do is to like use food or anything that's like harmful, or could be considered harmful, as like a coping mechanism because you don't really want to make something, you don't want to associate anything that's good but could be bad for you if used improperly. And so I really try to just make it like if that's seeing my dogs, if it's taking time to cuddle my dogs, or if it's going for a drive, or if it's sitting on the couch, drink a cup of coffee. Yeah, I try to just take time and breathe. And if I'm going into a situation that seems like it's going to be rough, I really just try to mentally prep myself and try to not like overhype myself, really be in the moment.
Hmm. What do you think about positive affirmations?
I think it's good. I think it can be a double-edged sword. I think the most important thing with positive affirmations is you have to have enough self-awareness to know that positive affirmations are there to remind you that things are going to be okay and that you are enough, but it shouldn't be anything that should be giving you an ego, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people so I think a lot of people rely somewhat too much on positive affirmations. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's very important to remind yourself that you are good and that you are enough. Because a lot of people do not remember that they're enough. I think where it becomes troublesome is if you start to let it develop into a complex, or if you start to let it develop into you believing that you're better than somebody else. I think that's, when we kind of cross into toxic territory. But if you're just, if it's harmless and you're just telling yourself, that you're loved and that you're cared for and that you have a support system or you have people that care about you, yeah, I mean, there is nothing wrong with that. Be positive as much as possible because, yeah, life ain't always positive. So take the time and, be positive about what you can be.
Absolutely. Are you spiritual or religious?
No. I used to be, very much so. And since having left it, I feel I'm a much better person for it. But yeah, I used to be a Mormon. So that's very it's a very large change going from a Mormon to an atheist.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Um, I would say I'm an introvert at heart, but with an extrovert attitude. I would love nothing more than to just kind of, be by myself, be self contemplative, and kind of just, yeah, be by myself. But when it comes to talking to other people, I certainly can. And I find myself able to communicate well with others and be extroverted. I think it's just a thing of, I guess I have my moments where I want to be both. So, kind of just depends. Yeah. It really just depends, I think, who I'm talking with and what the situation is. Like if like for example, like when I went in the job to a job interview, I'll be extroverted as much as I need to really drive home that confidence and that, self positivity and, oh like, man, like look at me, like I'm awesome. But then you also have to kind of remind yourself, like when you get home, you're like, all right, that was enough socializing for today. Like, I think I'm good. Like, I
Yeah.
would like to just be like online or like playing or watching something for the rest of the night.
Hmm. For sure. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Um, Good question. When I was hearing you ask this to a few other people, I was thinking about it myself, and I honestly didn't know how to answer it then. Still not really sure I know how to answer it now, to be honest. But I still see myself as married. I still see myself as, hopefully having a job. Hopefully whatever one I'm working on trying to get now, hopefully will work out and I'll still be there. And yeah, I see myself as having made a lot more content and still working with my hobby and still remaining it to be my hobby. I don't really have great aspirations, for anything too crazy or too big, but I've kind of learned that that's okay, that I don't have to have huge aspirations to still feel confident and good about my life. And yeah, I'm kind of okay just, yeah, just doing what I need to survive for and support my family. And yeah, I'm kind of okay just still enjoying my hobbies and my passions.
Hmm. What do you hope improves the most in the next 5 years?
I would say financially. I hope that financially I'm able to improve a lot more. Um, I'm not gonna lie, like the last 5 years of my life has been pretty difficult. But I think that kind of comes with the territory of moving out from your parents and just kind of having your own place and being married too. But yeah, I mean, being able to know that I haven't been evicted for not being financially destitute. Like, yeah, I would love for my financial situation to improve, but overall, I want to be in a better mental space and health space too.
Hmm. What's harder than you thought it would be as a creator, and what's easier?
I would say editing is easier and harder than what I thought it would be. Kind of a cop out because it's the same, but I really thought editing was going to be tremendously harder, But what I've realized is that editing isn't very hard. It's just time consuming. And I think that's kind of a double edged sword because in some ways it's like, oh, okay, well, that's good to know that I can do what I want to do with a video, but it's also difficult because it means I have to sink a lot more time into it. And so it kind of becomes a dance of how much effort do I want to really put into this video? How much do I really want to edit this? And so, in a lot of ways, I try to find some shortcuts that make things a little bit easier, whether that just be, roll gameplay in the background while I talk about something, or, download a video that I'm going to play in the background while I talk about a subject or topic. But I would say one of the easiest things for me, honestly, has just been it's like scripting out videos. That has been surprisingly easy because I don't actually script any of my videos. I actually do everything off the top of my head. So whenever I sit down to record for a video, everything I do is right into the mic. It just comes right off the head. That's kind of always the way I've wanted to make things, because I just assume that my first impression of something is probably my realistic impression of said thing. Obviously, that can change depending on what happens with whatever you're talking about or reviewing. But yeah, I would say that's probably one of the easier aspects. But editing is certainly one of the harder things, just for how much time it takes up. Yeah, it feels like death by a thousand paper cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Editing does. Like, yeah, you're gonna achieve what you want to achieve, but man, is it gonna take like just a lot of effort. And I've kind of changed. I don't want to say I've changed my content, but I've certainly made an effort for my content to be more digestible from a perspective of like, I don't really have the time to put in a ton of effort into editing. And so that means I'm either going to like live stream more, which requires no editing, um, or I'm going to, make a video that requires just footage and me talking. So, yeah, it kind of works out either way.
Who are some of your favorite creators?
Man, I would say my favorite creators, hands down, my favorite creator for as long as I can remember, and I've actually been watching him since the start of his channel, I believe, is Jeremy Johns. Jeremy Johns to this day remains one of my favorite channels. He's the only creator that I've never really taken issue. Like even if I disagree with him on a topic or subject, I've never taken issue with him on one of his reviews, be it game, movie, whatever. And I think it's just because he's got to be like one of the most honest people on YouTube. He's just really, really down to earth and like he's very transparent. It kind of feels like you're sitting at the bar talking to your buddy about a movie. And I'm sure that's probably intentional, but he's always been my favorite creator, hands down. In terms of some other creators I love, I really like I Hate Everything. I think I Hate Everything has a really good sense of humor, and he kind of got me into watching a lot of the like terrible movies that I watch now, much to the chagrin of my wife. I also really, really love. I unironically really love Gravity's channel. I very rarely do I enjoy watching live streamers, or do I enjoy watching people like Gravity, but I think that was kind of how we became friends, honestly, was because I was really surprised with how much I enjoyed his content because a lot of people like him don't have the personality to really hold an audience like that. Not in a meaningful way. And I really think Gravity did a great job of just like being really funny and just being really like sarcastic and I kind of felt like you like that one guy like in every squad or every like person you're playing a game with that you wanted to make sure was there, and so I really enjoy his content as well. I'm trying to think if I have any others. I also like I love like movie review channels and things like that. um I enjoy the occasional commentary as well. Like I like Drew Gooden, Danny Gonzalez. Cody Co, things like that. So I would say that those are probably my main ones. But yeah, Jeremy Johns is definitely at the top of that list, though.
What's your greatest ambition?
Greatest ambition. Um, I want to say it's probably to make a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I know I mentioned it a few times, but like when I say that if somebody offered me a check tomorrow and said, "Okay, go make a movie," like I would be down. I have ideas and concepts and scripts and things that I would be ready for. And the nice thing too is I make my own music as well, so that I save money on that. Like I've got a lot of the stuff mapped out. So um, yeah, I really would love to just sit down and to make a movie. I guess my one of the most amazing things would be like pie in the sky would be sit down with an incredible director like Tim Burton or Damien Leone or an incredible horror director and just really pick their brain about what gave them the ideas for their masterpieces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be like pie in the sky. But yeah, greatest ambition is definitely to make a movie.
You kind of already touched on this, but if you won the lottery, would you still be a creator?
Um, yeah, I would. I think my creative. So I growing up, I wasn't really very creative. I was actually really. I would argue I was really uncreative, actually. And for a lot of my lifetime growing up, I would watch other people do incredible things and say, "I wish that I could do that." And yeah, even if I had money, like that wouldn't stop me from wanting to do what I love, which is creating things. And YouTube was one of the first things that I really felt like I could create that didn't require me to be good at drawing or art or anything like that. Because a lot of the times, growing up in the early 2000s, it was kind of dependent on the technology you had as far as what you could create. And now with technology, you can kind of create whatever you want, whether it be art or music or film or what have you. And yeah, I wouldn't stop those creative pursuits just because I got rich. Financially, my life would be fantastic, but yeah, I think creativity is far too important
Mm-hmm.
to stop now.
What are some of the best parts of creating?
I really think it's that dopamine rush you get when you hear somebody talk about what you did and how it affected them. Like being able to be told that you did a great job, like I guess a positive affirmation to some
Mm-hmm.
extent. Being able to be told that your content was good and that somebody enjoyed it's a really nice feeling. But more than that, being able to feel like you had an impact on somebody in a way that you didn't think you could, that sometimes that means even more just because you're expanding somebody's mindset or palette or what have you to something that they might not have ever thought of had you not talked about it. So, yeah, I think it's just the satisfaction of sharing in a community with other people.
What is something about you that we don't know?
I'm a black belt in Taekwondo.
Oh, that's
Never guess it at all, but I am a black belt in Taekwondo. Got it in 2007, and it was through the American Taekwondo Association, ATA. So,
that's awesome. Don't mess with me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know how good I'd be in a street fight or anything, but I mean, but yeah, no, I remember that was a good time in the life. But yeah, I'm a black belt. I don't think I've ever talked about that on stream, so it's about what I got.
What is something you want your followers to know about you?
I guess I would want them to know that, like, just because I don't ever respond or don't ever properly acknowledge somebody, whether it be in a stream or on message or Discord or whatever, it doesn't mean that I don't care, and it doesn't mean that I didn't see what you said or what your message is. It just means that I have anxiety and I don't always properly get back to people in the way that I'd like to. Um, yeah, like I think that was one thing that I had to realize kind of quickly is that a lot of people want to be your friend online, and I appreciate that a lot. Like the fact that anybody wants to spend a monicum of time with me is much appreciated. Um, I guess it's just the fact that like you have to know like boundaries, and you have to know that your time frame, especially too with me being married and having, you know, two dogs in a household and hopefully soon a job and things like that, like time is limited. And so the time that I spend on stream or making videos or what have you, that kind of is my time available, if that makes sense. Um, but it's certainly not because I don't want to spend more time. It's just because, you know, time is a limited thing, and it's not something we all have a lot of. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, when I'm here and I'm in the hobby, I'm in the hobby. But when I'm out of it, when I'm, you know, not doing it, I'm probably hanging out with family.
Awesome. What questions have I not asked that I should have asked?
Um, that's a good question. I don't know.
How can we find you?
Yeah, I am on YouTube. I'm on Discord. I am on Twitter. I haven't got around to calling it X because I just don't know if I ever can. But yeah, I'm on all those. I'm actually really active on Twitter, weirdly enough. Probably annoyingly so. But I don't know. I still find it fun. Yeah, so I'm on those avenues. I'm also on SoundCloud as well. So if none of the music that you find on my YouTube page greets you, then SoundCloud would be the next best place if you want to listen to any of the music that I've put on for any of my videos.